Hey guys, this is the Wrestling Matters Podcast, Episode 1, and I am your host, Juwan the Don. On this show, we will discuss amateur, international, and college wrestling. We will also cover some mixed martial arts and breaking news in the grappling world. Today's episode will cover UFC 256, Jordan Burroughs versus David Taylor confirmed, the RTC Cup results, and Flow Wrestling's 8-man bracket at 150 pounds, where the winner gets $25,000. A couple side notes in the grappling MMA world. Yoel Romero, who was recently released from the UFC, has just signed a multiple fight deal with Bellator, and he'll be debuting at 205 pounds. That's awesome for the Olympic silver medalist. All right, first of all, today we're going to get into UFC 256. In the co-main event, wrestling in fact mattered, as Charles Oliveira dominated the number 3 ranked lightweight contender in the UFC, Tony Ferguson. Oliveira completed 3 of 3 takedowns that smoothly transitioned into 3 submission attempts, one being a very nasty armbar where Ferguson was saved by the bell. Yeah, I don't know if the bell saved Ferguson there. That left arm looked damaged. There might have been a fracture. I don't know how he didn't tap. Oliveira completely tucked the arm under his body, and there's a disgusting amount of torque on there. But Ferguson went the distance. He lasted the whole fight. He got beat up pretty bad, but he has heart. He stayed in there. Wrestling community knows Tony Ferguson as the 2006 NCAA champ at 165 pounds. He had college wrestling stints at Central Michigan and Grand Valley State. He's on a rough 2-fight losing streak for Ferguson. He also said he was up to taking a wrestling match on one of these cards. So somebody make it happen, you know. I don't know if that's Flow Wrestling or Rockfin, but somebody let's get Tony a wrestling match, man. You know, it's gonna be a rough climb back to try to get an attempt at the belt for Tony Ferguson. He was on a 12-fight win streak in the UFC, and he fought for the interim title and won the interim title, but he never actually fought for a belt. And now he's on a pretty bad 2-fight losing streak where he took significant damage in both losses. So our best wishes are for Tony Ferguson, and keep an eye out for Charles Oliveira. I could see him being the next lightweight champ now that Khabib is so-called retired, allegedly. I don't think Khabib's coming back. We'll get into that later on a different episode, but Khabib says he's retired. The UFC hasn't taken him out of the rankings, and they haven't put an interim fight up, so we'll see Poirier versus McGregor here in January, and then I'm sure they'll decide from there. In the main event at UFC 256, the flyweight belt, also known as 125 pounds, was up for grabs, and that was your champ Davison Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno, the challenger, and also the number 1 ranked contender. Moreno is. Plenty of action and energy and wrestling in this bout, which was my first time ever seeing a majority draw. I believe I've seen a draw. I don't know if I've seen a majority draw. I don't really know that I'm fully knowledgeable of the difference. I know that 2 judges scored it as a tie, and 1 judge gave it to Figueiredo. Figueiredo lost a point from a pretty vicious cup shot. It was one of the worst kicks below the belt I've ever seen. I don't know if it was intentional. The ref took a point from him. He also, Brandon Moreno landed a takedown earlier in the fight, and Figueiredo poked him in the eye on his way to get up. But I mean, it's fighting, guys. Like it's fighting. I don't know. They gave him his time to recover for each. He chose not to take a lot of time. He's a tough kid. He'll be back. The champ Figueiredo was 2 of 4 on takedowns in the fight. And Brandon Moreno, the challenger, was 4 of 8 on takedowns. Okay, they're both finishing at about 50%, and it's good. It's good to see in a pay-per-view 5-round fight for a belt in the UFC is a potential fight of the year candidate, and it was very exciting. And we see 6 takedowns landed on 12 attempts. That's good for the sport. It's good for both sports. I didn't hear anyone say it was boring. And these guys wrestled in there, as well as mixing all of their martial arts. So that was very good. Brandon Moreno had a body lock, that put the champ on his face and had him hurt. It was about as much damage as I've seen Figueiredo all year, and he's fought what 3 times now. Attempted to fight 3 times for the belt, 4 times in 1 year, and Moreno hit him and stunned him, stumbled him a couple times, and he took him down and dropped him on his neck. So look for them to run it back in 2021, unless the Olympic champ Triple C Henry Cejudo wants to cut a little weight and play spoiler and get back into action. I think he was just waiting for. I don't think that is a true fake retirement. Henry Cejudo will be back. He said what his number is, and he just needs these guys to get a little bit more clout and fans under their belt, so Dana White can put the proper money on the table. Henry's not fighting for under $500,000. That's just what it is. There's guys getting paid millions. He's a star. Flyweight champ, bantamweight champ, Olympic gold medalist. Stop, dude. He needs his money. What's next here? Look for Figueiredo to respect Moreno more when they fight again. Figueiredo, it was a short notice fight. I think it was on like 20 days or something like that. It's also the fastest anyone in UFC history has ever defended their belt. He fought in November 21 days ago, and then boom, fought again last weekend. And it was a majority draw, but he still keeps the belt, so it's technically defended it. I was confused on that, but I think there will be a rematch after they recover for probably a month or 2. But yeah, look for Figueiredo to respect Moreno more, lower his stance, be less willing to tie up and engage with the wrestling with Moreno, because I think that was to Moreno's advantage. Figueiredo is strong, though. A lot of his takedowns come from just burst of energy and just picking up people and horsing them over. You can see it's pretty interesting, man. It's nothing really solid about it. He's just a freak. He just tosses people, hits them really hard. That's all for UFC 256. UFC Fight Night this weekend. Look for former USA Wrestling member Duran Wynn to get to his wrestling, get a victory here in the UFC. I believe he lost his last fight, maybe his last 2. I'm not exactly sure. But Duran Wynn, former Team USA wrestler, I believe, he has huge wins over. He has wins over world champion Jaden Cox. He's also a JUCO national champ, so check out Duran Wynn this weekend on ESPN or ESPN Plus fighting the UFC. I'll also be excited to watch Chito Vera versus Jose Aldo. 2 really funky jiu-jitsu guys, but great fighters. I'm interested to see if it gets to the grappling exchange, who dominates there, because they're both very high level jiu-jitsu guys. But I want to see who's the better wrestler. Who lands on top, who controls the exchanges. So that'll be a fun one this weekend. All right, now, guys, we're going to get into the RTC Cup. The RTC Cup. Some of you guys may say, what's an RTC? Some of you guys are like, I already know what an RTC is. An RTC is a regional training center. A regional training center. It is what it is right there. It's going to be a training center somewhere in your region or somebody else's region. All right. High-level athletes go there and they get together and they train. Specifically for wrestling, in this case that I'm speaking of, it's usually associated with the Division I university. The Ohio RTC trains right there in Columbus at Ohio State. A lot of great Ohio State wrestlers, when they graduate, they end up wrestling for the Ohio RTC. All right, so we had a lot of good teams there. We had Virginia Tech and the Southeast RTC, and they were teamed up with New Jersey RTC and Princeton. We had Spartan Combat RTC, which is really an affiliate of Cornell. There was the Ohio RTC. There was the Cliff Keen Wrestling Club, which is an affiliate of the Michigan Wolverines. And that was your RTC Cup winners. Your RTC Cup winners for 2020 is the Cliff Keen Wrestling Club, also affiliated with Michigan University, the Wolverines. 57 kilograms, they had the NCAA champ Seth Gross. He's really affiliated with Wisconsin, but he actually filled in for Stevan Micic, the 3-time Indiana State champ, multiple-time All-American at Michigan. Micic is out. Hopefully he'll be ready for the Olympics here in a few months. Well, actually, next year, I should say. At 65 kilograms, the Michigan Wolverine. Not the Michigan Wolverines. Former Michigan Wolverine Alec Pantaleo. Alec Pantaleo at 65 kilograms was undefeated on the weekend for the Cliff Keen Wrestling Club. At 74 kilograms, they had Logan Massa, who had a really good weekend. He took one tough loss to Tommy Gant, 7-3. But otherwise, he's been a staple of consistency, and he's right there around the corner behind the probably top 3 elite 74 kilogram guys. This is a solid top 5 guys, Massa. But tough loss to Gant. It makes things a little confusing for the weekend because Gant loses a couple to guys. But overall, Cliff Keen Wrestling Club gets the win. At 86 kilograms, they had Miles Amin, who's already qualified for the Olympics. He had a nice weekend. He teched Nate Jackson. But he lost to Trent Hidley, who I believe is a sophomore at NC State. And we'll get more into Hidley later. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to think of that. He took a little loss to Hidley. No big deal. Amin's game. He'll be right back. And look for him to try to make a difference at the Olympics for his country. At 97 kilograms, Cliff Keen Wrestling Club had Dominic Abinator and TJ Dudley. They split time and they were solid. Took some losses, but definitely I don't want to say the weakness of their team, but they held tough, fought off some tech falls, scored some points. So those two guys are always exciting to watch. And at 125 kilograms, Cliff Keen Wrestling Club had Mason Paris. Mason Paris had a great weekend. We're going to get into that in a little bit, though. I'm going to go over my outstanding wrestlers, the Wrestling Matters podcast, outstanding wrestlers for each weight class for the whole overall RTC Cup. Your champions is the Cliff Keen Wrestling Club. I'm going to go over the OWs for each weight. At 57 kilograms from the Spartan Combat RTC, Cornell University's Vitaly Arujau. Vito looked amazing. He dominated everyone. I believe his closest match was 14-9 with Nashawn Garrett. Vito looked dominant. And he's going to be right there. He's going to be a mess. He's going to be a problem at the Olympic trials. Watch out for that guy at 57 kilos. 65 kilos, this is tough, because Pantaleo went undefeated, but I can't give it to Pantaleo. I have to give it to Yanni Diakomahalis. You heard it, guys. Yanni D. Spartan Combat RTC, Yanni D. This guy is a cadet world champ. He's a 2-time NCAA champ on 2 tries. Will potentially have an opportunity to be a 4-timer. He's not wrestling this year. I believe the Ivy League's pulled out of winter sports this year, which is unfortunate. But Yanni's going to be looking to make the team for the Olympics. He's right there. He had a great weekend. He had 2 wins over James Green. James Green is a world silver medalist and a world bronze medalist. And Yanni Diakomahalis, young man in college right now, still beat him twice. I believe both were on criteria. I think that was tied, but that's savvy wrestling, knowing where he's at and winning against a veteran like that on criteria. So Yanni D is your outstanding wrestler for 65 kilograms. He also teched the Ohio State Buckeye Sammy Sasso. That's a huge win. He's asserting himself on the senior level. That's Yanni D right there. At 74 kilograms, it's going to be the Ohio RTC's Carson Karchula. If you don't know who Karchula is, you have plenty of time to get to know him. He's going to be a guy. This guy went undefeated on the weekend at 74 kilograms. He had a big 9-2 win over NCAA Division I champ Mekhi Lewis. Mekhi Lewis is also a junior world champ, and Carson Karchula got the victory over him as well. Look for Karchula to be competing for an NCAA title this year. He's a freshman for Ohio State, and he's proved that he's on the level. Look for him to be a threat to win it all right away. He also had a big win over Tommy Gant. Tommy Gant beat Massa. Karchula beats Gant. I don't know. Look out for Karchula, dude. He's serious. 86 kilograms. Trent Hidley from NC State, or the Wolfpack RTC. He's a sophomore in college, I believe. Younger brother to Hayden Hidley, the All-American from NC State. And Trent Hidley is a horse. He went through and he beat everyone in front of him. Great win over Miles Amin, the All-American, Olympic qualified. Miles Amin, great win, highly dominated. He looked great. He looked great at 86 kilograms and beat everyone in front of him. And the future's bright for Trent Hidley. Keep an eye out on him. We don't have an outstanding wrestler for 97 kilograms. Everybody lost a match. I think it could be a three-way tie. I think Zillmer's only loss was to Colin Moore on criteria. Colin Moore's only loss was the last takedown and lace to Machiavello. But then Machiavello lost to Zillmer, and Machiavello also bumped up to heavyweight and lost to Don Bradley. So, no distinction at 97 kilograms. Look for Jaden Cox, Kyvan Gadsden, and Kyle Snyder to set themselves apart from those three. I was really expecting Colin Moore to assert himself. Disappointed to see the quick comeback by Machiavello, but Machiavello has heart and ice in his veins, and that's what he does. He upsets people. So Machiavello's a stud out of NC State. Be looking out for him at 97 kilograms. At 125 kilograms, this was tough too. You know, I could have had a three-way tie here too, but I'm gonna give the edge to Mason Paris. Mason Paris did have a loss on the weekend. He lost to two-time world bronze medalist Nick Gwiazdowski. Mason Paris was up 8-0 on Gwiz. He was up 8-0. He needed one more takedown for the tech fall. What does Gwiz do? He does two-time world medalist-like things. He comes back and he tech falls Mason Paris 18-8. Never seen anything like it. Okay. But the reason I still give the OW to Mason Paris is because Mason Paris comes back and wrestles him again and proves that it was not a fluke that he was up 8-0, and he is on the level, and he is a threat to make the Olympic team, and he beats Gwiazdowski straight up 10-7. He also had an 8-2 win over Tony Nelson. The significance of that is Gable Steven, or the Gopher RTC out of Minnesota, chose for whatever reason not to wrestle Mason Paris. Gable Stevenson beat Jordan Wood. I don't know if he had another match other than he beat Gwiazdowski, and that's what he came there to do, and that's what he made very clear is that he came there to beat Gwiazdowski and assert himself as the number one guy coming to the Olympic trials. My only issue with that is, and it's not an issue with that, but just from a media perspective, is that there's another guy that also beat Gwiazdowski, and he stepped out to wrestle, and you didn't step out. He says he owns that guy. I don't buy it. An 8-6 folk style victory doesn't map out to an owning from my perspective. I know a lot of people say the takedown count or this and that, but these guys will wrestle it out in due time. Those are your three lead guys coming into the Olympic trials. Look for Kirk Vliet to make it a miss. Kirk Vliet's on the level. But you know the future's interesting there at heavyweight. A lot of parity there. Those three guys, I believe, all can beat each other, and it really depends on who gets hot. For the Ohio RTC, Sammy Sasso and Anthony Echemendia, the lower weights, they looked good at 65 kilos. They took one loss apiece. Echemendia lost to James Green. He had a lead late, and James Green got on a tight low leg attack and ended up lacing him and tech falling him. One of the tightest leg laces I've ever seen. Sammy Sasso looked good. He tech falled Kevin Jack. I believe he tech falled Mitch McKee. And he got tech falled by Yanni Diakomahalis. And in the match looked interesting. You know, it got a little out of hand, but hopefully he can close the distance from someone like Yanni in due time. And overall, those young guys look good, and look for them to be competing for NCAA titles this year. And that's for Ohio State, and that's Sammy Sasso and Anthony Echemendia. All right. Next, we'll get into January 9th, live on Flow Wrestling. Jordan Burroughs versus David Taylor has been confirmed. It has been confirmed. These guys have been going back and forth on Twitter, Instagram, jabbing back and forth, all in the fun and growth of wrestling, and that's what this podcast is here for, and that's why I'm here to talk about it. But hey guys, don't think that I'm trying to sell you on this. This is a pretty big deal. Jordan Burroughs is a 4-time world champion. He's also an Olympic champion and a 2-time NCAA champion. David Taylor is also a world champion. 2-time world champ David Taylor at 86 kilograms. They've had close matches in the past, down at 74. This is up at 86. David's huge, man. I just hope that this match is competitive. Obviously, I'm gonna pick Burroughs, but David Taylor is north of 200 pounds, cutting to 189, and Burroughs usually wrestles at 163. So I'm interested to see the size difference and a strength difference at 189. David Taylor works hard. He got big. He grew into 86 kilograms. Notable things about this matchup: they've had close matches in the past. If you're doubting David Taylor, I'll say this. David Taylor has the size advantage by far. He's the number one guy in the world at that weight class. They've had close matches in the past at 74. David Taylor is 2-0 versus Hassan Yazdani Charati from Iran. Hassan Yazdani Charati from Iran was the Olympic gold medalist in 2016 at 74 kilograms at the weight that Jordan Burroughs competed at and beat David Taylor out for that spot. So, actually, that's incorrect. Excuse me. I believe David Taylor was up at 8. Was he already up at 86? I think David Taylor. Excuse me. David Taylor was up at 86 kilograms. He lost to Jaden Cox at the Olympic trials in 2016, I believe. Excuse me. I'll have to look into that. David Taylor's 2-0 against Yazdani. Yazdani won the 2016 Olympic gold medal at 74 kilograms, where Jordan Burroughs was competing at as the returning Olympic gold medalist, and was upset by Russia. In the finals, Yazdani beat the Russian and became the gold medalist at the age of 21. Yazdani moves up to 86 kilograms. He gets pinned by David Taylor at the World Cup, and he gets absolutely worn down and beaten in the first round of the World Championships. So there's a little bit of mutual, guys, I know a lot of you guys don't buy into that. But hey, there's also David Taylor cradled Jordan Burroughs twice. This is where it gets interesting for me, because a cradle, and where I come from, a cradle is a pinning position. So if you can cradle a guy, you in theory you should be able to beat him, especially if you cradled him twice and now you're even bigger and stronger. I don't know. Give me Burroughs. I wouldn't bat an eye if Taylor wins or horses him over. Burroughs has nothing to lose here. He's looking to become a GOAT with the win over David Taylor, and I wouldn't bat an eye if he beats David Taylor, gets down to 74, makes weight, wins the Olympics 74. He's the greatest. He's the greatest in my eyes. Now that's a debate. There's Baumgartners, there's John Smiths, there's Carolyn. There's a lot. But Burroughs beat Zahid Valencia recently at 86 kilograms. No, actually, I believe it was 185 they did. Either way, Jordan Burroughs was down 4-0 at the break against Zahid Valencia. He outscores him 8-1 in the second period. Burroughs has his ways with these guys. He's probably lost. I can count on my hands and toes how many times he's lost as an adult in freestyle wrestling and internationally. So I'm gonna go with Burroughs. The size may be a factor, and David Taylor's legit. David Taylor's absolutely legit. So I would not discredit David Taylor at all. All right, guys. Now we're gonna get into finally the 8-man bracket at 150 pounds for $25,000 for the winner. The runner-up gets $15,000. Third place gets 10 bands. Fourth place gets $5,000. Fifth through 8th place get $1K. All right, guys. Here are your wrestlers competing from the top of the bracket down. You have India's Bajrang Punia. You have Pat Lugo from Iowa. Anthony Ashnault, former NCAA champ. Evan Henderson. Jordan Oliver. Alec Pantaleo. Bryce Meredith. And James Green. All right, we can go through and break down the first round matches, match by match. Bajrang Punia versus Pat Lugo. Punia looks to have, I don't know if this is seeded. Yeah, it looks, okay, yeah. Punia has the 1 seed. James Green has the 2 seed. This makes sense. Okay. Oliver's the 3. Is it Hendo the 4? Henderson's the 4. Okay, I see how they're doing this. Okay, Bajrang Punia versus Pat Lugo. I don't know. I feel like this could be a potential upset. Pat Lugo's on the level. He's very solid. Nice win over Pletcher on one of these cards this summer. He's gonna be big. He's gonna be bigger than Punia. He's a true 49 pounder, and Punia's a 65 kilograms, 143. The weight might not be a thing here. I could be overthinking it, but Pat Lugo's very solid. I know the way Punia beat Yanni and the way he beat Jordan Oliver, I just don't see Pat Lugo getting out of position like that. No offense. Obviously, I think Oliver and Yanni are a little bit better than Lugo, but Lugo just appears to be a little bit more solid. I think he's solid enough to beat Punia, but Punia's elite, so that'll be a fun first-round match. Next match is Ashnault versus Henderson. Big note on this match. This is the first round match I want to see, just because I feel like these guys are such streaky wrestlers. If I see Ashnault get hot, or if I see Henderson get hot, I could see them running through. Just because they're both such streaky wrestlers. More so than the past results, I look at it as I just know their capabilities, and they're kind of guys that just those are my bracket busters, are Ashnault and Henderson. Ashnault is 3-2 against competition in the bracket. He has a win over Henderson, a win over Lugo, and a win over Bryce Meredith. So look at Ashnault to make things shake. You know, if he can beat Henderson and Lugo can beat Punia, he'll be in a position where he can walk into 15 to 25,000 and not have to see anyone he's ever lost to. You know, so look for Ashnault to be a problem there. Henderson's 1-4 against competition. He has a win over Meredith. He's lost to Lugo, Jordan Oliver, and Ashnault. I wouldn't necessarily look at his record against this competition too heavily. He looked really good recently against Anthony Etchemendy. He looked really good. I watched James Green wrestle Etchemendy recently, and I watched Henderson wrestle Etchemendy recently, and Henderson looked better. That's all I'll say. He's in New York training with Yanni, Mike Gray. Watch out for Henderson to break up this bracket, really bust it up. So that'll be interesting. Jordan Oliver versus Alec Pantaleo. This is interesting. Pantaleo hasn't wrestled anyone on this list. What are the odds about that? And he's on fire. He was undefeated at the RTC Cup. Man, look out for Pantaleo to try to bust up this bracket. Jordan Oliver is 4-4 against competition here. He's 2-0 against Henderson and 2-0 against Meredith. He's also 0-2 against James Green and 0-2 against Bajrang Punia. So Jordan Oliver is a very definitive 3 seed here. He's 0-4 against the 1 and 2 seed. He's very capable, though. I'm interested to see how J.O. looks. And you have Bryce Meredith versus James Green. James Green should be heavily favored here, but Bryce Meredith is no joke. You know, this is a guy that's made the NCAA finals as a 14 seed and as a 10 seed. I wouldn't sleep on that guy. James Green, 2-time world medalist. He's 4-0 against the competition here. He's 2-0 against Jordan Oliver. He's 2-0 against Ashnault. I thought Ashnault beat him once, but I guess I was wrong there. The most fun potential final for me would be James Green versus Anthony Ashnault. It was a really good match in the past, and I know James Green flexed at him and did his little karate stance. So I'd be interested to see if Ashnault can get some revenge or close the distance, and see how this world medalist feels coming down to 150 pounds, possibly a 65 kilograms for James Green. He looked decent against Yanni, in criteria. If he can get a little bit more explosive and control some of the exchanges, he might be a factor here. But Green versus Ashnault rubber match would be fun for me. I also wouldn't mind seeing Bajrang Punia versus Jordan Oliver in the finals. simply because I didn't like their last match just because, well, I actually learned a lot talking to my uncle about this match because I'm so new to freestyle. I'm not new to freestyle, but some of the rules and nuances of it, I'm not as familiar because I watch too much folk style wrestling. But Puna had Oliver caught on his back and he wasn't pinned, but the ref won't take you off your back in freestyle. So like a minute and a half went by on the clock and Oliver was just like kind of stuck in like a funky position and like a scramble, and he was just stuck there. And I feel like if they would have reset, Oliver would have got to his offense and he would have finished a takedown on him, but the time expired. So potential rubber match for Oliver, but he has to get through James Green and Pantaleo to even think about that. Hottest wrestlers right now on this list, Evan Henderson and Alec Pantaleo. Why? Alec Pantaleo went undefeated at the RTC Cup, and Henderson beat Anthony Echemendia on the Zahid Valencia versus Jordan Burroughs cards, and Evan Henderson looked really good against Echemendia. Echemendia was on fire coming into that match. Your Wrestling Matters podcast pick for the finals is going to be Jordan Oliver versus Anthony Ashnault. That's my problem, man. I have an obsession with the underdog, but I think that Jordan Oliver could break through here, and I also like Ashnault's chances, but look for the favorites James Green and Puna to try to get to the final. But I like Jordan Oliver and Ashnault's chances. And that's all for today, guys. This is Juwan the Don hosting your Wrestling Matters podcast in today's episode 1. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you.